We are getting into the thick of Rhythmic Illusion now. This is getting good. Let's do this. Okay, so I want to get into this whole idea of resolution, okay? Because as we progress now, especially this week dealing with 3-note spacings in 16th notes, it becomes more important that we talk about this aspect of resolve, all right? Resolution. And what I'm talking about is where a odd note rhythm resolves to a quarter note and then ultimately resolves to beat 1 again, all right? And this is important for the simple fact that as you're practicing these things, you don't want to take so long to come back to beat 1 that by the time you get there, you're actually somewhere entirely different. So if you have these mini resolves on the quarter note as you're coming back to beat 1, you'll know where you are. It's at least easier to know it as you play through it. All right, and you can keep track of yourself and your progress that way. It's pretty simple. All this stuff is foundational, like I've said. Okay, so basically, if we take a 3-note pattern, right, left, left, okay, and we start that pattern on beat 1, 3 notes from beat 1, 3/16 notes from beat 1 is the of 1, okay? 3/16 notes from the of 1 is the and of 2. 3/16 notes from the and of 2 is the E of 3, and then 3/16 notes from the E of 3 is beat 4. There's our first mini resolve, okay? And then you just keep cycling that pattern until you come back to beat 1, okay? So in the first bar, you would resolve to beat 4. In the second bar, you would resolve to beat 3, sorry. In the next bar, you will resolve to beat 2, and then in the last bar you will come back to beat 1. I'll give you an idea of that. All right, I'm going to play at 80 beats a minute. Actually, it's 70 beats a minute. I'm going to take this slow so you guys understand this and it doesn't go by so fast that you're like, what the hell? Okay, so I'm going to take right, left, left as the pattern, a 3-note 16th phrase. All right, and I'll just work my way all the way back to beat 1, counting out or shouting out the mini resolves as they happen for you. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1. Okay, now the next step of that is just to feel where those 16th notes happen without the notes in the middle. So the rights without the lefts. All right, so you're just feeling that accent pattern moving through quarter notes and resolving back to beat 1. So I'll give you an idea of that once again at 70 beats a minute. 3, 4, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay? So getting into this rhythmic illusion thing, I already showed you that spacing 3 notes in 16th notes, what that is, the 1 and the of 1 and the and of 2 and so on and so forth. You can do that with 8th notes as well. Okay? So, and what I mean by that is you can space them to the beat 1, starting on beat 1, to the and of 2, to beat 4, and so on that way. So I'm going to clap this out. I'll keep time here, okay? 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, do this in eighth notes as well, and our first example is going to be that way. Once again, I'm going to give you a crude written example of this so you can see what the groove is. Once again, the math is of the utmost importance, but that's not where you end up. You end up with feeling it, hearing it, and playing it in a live setting. If you negate the math, however, you will only frustrate yourself. Do the math and then get rid of the math and move on to the higher thing, which is ultimately feeling. But just don't think that you're going to feel all of this stuff. It's almost impossible, I think, to do that. Now we'll move on to the show, all right? On to the practical application of what I'm talking about. So the first example I'm going to show you goes like this. Basically, excuse me, the hi-hat is going to play 3/16 notes apart. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. All right? That's going to be the hi-hat. The bass drum is going to play all the mini resolves that we talked about on the quarter note. So beat 1 of the first bar, beat 4 of the first bar, beat 3 of the second bar, beat 2 of the third bar, and on the fourth bar you'll resolve back to 1. Okay? And then the snare drum is going to play 2 notes apart from the bass drum on the ands of the beat. Okay? And because it's spaced like that, 2 notes apart, yet you're playing 3 notes apart from each other in the hi-hat. That is what creates the illusion. I know it might be a little esoteric, but the written example will give you a good idea to be able to see it, to go, okay, I get that, all right? Just explaining this stuff is not going to be enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the hi-hat first at 80 beats a minute, then I'll drop in the bass drum, and then I'll add the snare drum to finish it off, all right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. Okay, so there is that. All right, now what I'm going to do is kind of go from playing regular eighth notes into this thing, dropping back, and of course giving the illusion that I'm slowing down the time. I'm going to bump this up a little bit to, say, 120. All right, and this will give you an idea of what it's like to kind of pull the time back a little bit. And once again, music being tension and release, the rhythmic illusion is the tension, and the release is when you come out of it, of course, right? And again, these things can be highly effective in terms of creating tension and release, and also just for the sake of simple creativity, and adding value to the people you're playing with and the bands you're playing with. All right? So I'll give you an idea of what it sounds like from eighths, dropping down to the spacing of 3/16 notes. 1, 2. the next example, we're going to utilize a slightly different hi-hat pattern, all right? That hi-hat pattern is basically going to be a grouping of 2 16th notes with 1 16th note taken out. I'll show you what I mean by that, and I'll also have it written out for you, all right? So basically, it looks like this. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E, 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. Okay, like that. I'm going to do this at 80 beats a minute, and I will give you an idea of what that is. I'll basically play the bass drum and snare drum 3 notes apart from each other, and you will hear the illusion created. All right? 3, 4. Back to beat 1. 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now I'm going to bring this one up to speed, 120. And I'll show you what that feels like going again from a straight 8th note rhythm in common time, and then dropping this bombshell into the equation, all right, and creating, once again, just creating tension. You can use these things as groove fill ideas. They're slightly angular, but if you get into them and out of them, you know, quickly enough, and you don't live in that place, certainly in a pop context anyway, they can create just the right effect and inspire the band and elevate the music and do everything good to the music and to you as a player. All right? So, at 120. 1, 2. For the third example, I'm going to maintain or retain the faux shuffle hi-hat rhythm, which is a grouping of 2 16th notes, all right, with the 1 taken out, like I explained. And I'm going to drop the bass drum snare drum ratio now back to 8th notes. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and like so on and so forth, all right? I'm basically just going to show you this example because I'll have it written out, and I'll do it at 80 beats a minute, and then I'll bring it up to tempo, all right? Because I'm spacing it further back now with 8th notes instead of 16ths, because in the last example it came out kind of as a regular time rock shuffle or blues shuffle, and in this example, because I'm dropping it back to 8th notes, it's going to give the illusion of a half-time shuffle. All right, like kind of a Rosanna deal, but I'm going to keep it a little simpler than that just for demonstration purposes, all right? So, at 80 beats a minute, here we go. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now I'm going to bring it up to 120 again, like the other ones, and I'll go from straight 8th time and drop this back to this idea. Once again, you're playing 16th notes. It sounds triplety, but it's not triplety at all. If triplety is a word. It's still 16th notes. It's just dealing with spacing, all right? When you space everything 3 notes apart, when your groove is that way, it's going to come out sounding more like a shuffle because a shuffle is 3 notes. 1, 2. so for my fourth and final example, I'm going to take a groove directly out of Gavin Harrison's book. And I highly, once again, recommend the book. It just explains it very well and gets you playing it very quickly, no matter how trepidatious you might feel going into it. All right? This example that I'm going to show you, I played at a gig once, and I had a 4-bar drum break in this one song, and I didn't inform the band that I had been working on this idea, and I've never seen such horrified looks on people's faces when the floor dropped out and nobody in the band except me knew where beat 1 was. I counted them back in, the day was saved, and that's fine, but you know, handle these things with gloves, right? Because sometimes the rest of the band may not have context for it, and if you can count them back in, it's great. It's always better to maybe rehearse this stuff. So I'm just going to show you the example, and it'll be written out for you. All right? I just think this is such an effective concept and illusion. All right? So I'll just play it at 120 and give you the rundown of it, going from straight 8s to this illusion. 1, 2. Okay, guys and girls, I appreciate you checking this out, and I appreciate it even more if you work on it. This stuff's a little bit challenging, but if you sit with it for even just a few days, you're going to start getting this under your belt, and you can take it to rehearsal, to the bandstand, and you can start to elevate the music, adding more value to you as a player and to the music itself and to the arrangements that you and your bands may be working on. All right? If you haven't checked out Unsung, go ahead and check that out. My other initiative, it's just a way to give back to the people of this city, Calgary, that have had a footprint on their community here and the culture of this city. All right? Once again, you can like and share, more importantly, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications if you please. And that's about it. Next week, we're going to not do Rhythmic Illusion because I want to set the stage for the 5s and 7s that we're going to be doing. So I'm going to take you guys through another grid of compound stickings that deal with everything from 3 notes up to 8 notes. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, and that's going to set the foundation and the groundwork for a lot of things that I'm going to be showing from here on out. So definitely check that out. All right. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.